Oh boy, what a night to remember for the Ohio State Buckeyes in Arlington, Texas. 28-14, they get it done against the Texas Longhorns, and the Buckeyes are headed to the national championship game in Atlanta against Notre Dame. An unbelievable defensive effort down the stretch. The offense was pretty good for the most part, but couldn't get out of their own way with so many critical penalties. We've got a ton to break down. Jack Sawyer, the hero. The Buckeye defense gets it done with a goal line stand. It turned into a scoop and score. And Ohio State with a 2-touchdown win over the Longhorns. Live reaction postgame show coming up on the Buckeye Breakdown podcast.
We've got the whole crew together as we cover Ohio State with our instant analysis from Ohio State.
There's something that doesn't feel right.
Unbelievable effort from him today. Is E.J. Liddell going to crack the first team All Big Ten?
I think he can be the guy. I'm not trying to start a quarterback controversy.
He seems to have the durability. He certainly has the toughness. This is the question on a lot of people's minds here. Welcome to Buckeye Breakdown.
Just an incredible night at Jerry's World, AT&T Stadium down in Arlington. The Ohio State Buckeyes have knocked out Texas in what was a virtual road game. Certainly Buckeye fans traveled well, but that was a far heavier crowd for Texas than it was for Ohio State. And the Buckeyes have now won 3 games in a row in the CFP and have punched their ticket to Atlanta for the national championship. Anthony, how good does that sound after how bad it was there at the end of November?
Unbelievable. You look back 2 months and been hard pressed to believe you'd be in this spot, heading to Atlanta, getting ready to take on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish for a national championship. That is a bigger story in and of itself for both of these teams. But specifically on tonight, we talked about it so many times over the past couple weeks. This team has been on an absolute mission to right their wrongs, to get back to where they're supposed to be. And now they're on the doorstep. And tonight they proved that they can win in a knockdown, drag out, 13-round fight, as they just did with the Texas Longhorns. They did it in so many ways, which was so impressive. And it was just a special performance from all the Buckeyes tonight.
You know, I feel like this goes to what I said pregame around how are they going to handle adversity. And as it turned out, you know, some of it was Texas created, right? I mean, they basically bracketed Jeremiah Smith all game. He just wasn't open. And essentially the one time that Will tried to force him the ball, he threw a pick, 1 catch for 3 yards. He was essentially a non-factor, but it opened the door. And I felt like this was possible pregame for Carnell Tate and for Emeka Egbuka to step into the roles that they did. Emeka didn't have a ton of touches, but you felt his presence out there in the same way that you felt Jeremiah Smith. And Carnell Tate had a huge performance. We'll talk plenty about, you know, play calling and scheme, because there were some moments I didn't love what I saw. But all in all, the grittiness and the toughness from this Ohio State team to buckle down and essentially when they couldn't put the game away because they kept committing penalties that were preventing them from putting it away, they at least were able to prevent the game from unraveling on them and let Texas take enough of a momentum swing to put Ohio State on its heels. I thought the Buckeyes handled the adversity that they kind of created for themselves a lot along the way.
Yeah, and the really impressive part of that is they haven't been in that scenario in a while. We talked about it pregame. It's been a long time since they've been in a 4-quarter game, and you saw that this team has the wherewithal. They have the guts to stick it out, because it was really, we got to give Texas their flowers. I mean, they played really good. Sark had them ready to go. From a game plan perspective, I thought defensively they were great. I thought on the offensive side of the ball, Ohio State got Texas's best effort. They got Quinn Ewers' best effort tonight, and it proved out to be a really competitive game, back and forth. And I want to stick on Jeremiah Smith there for a second. And from a statistics standpoint, right, he was a non-factor. But the fact that Texas had to know exactly where number 4 was at every play, every snap. They had to have 2 guys on him at all times. That in and of itself was enough to open things up for others throughout the game. Yes, Will Howard had to adjust to it. Like, hey, I don't have my safety valve. I don't have my blanket there if I need him. But he did his part. Everyone did their part. That's the best thing about it. This was such a great team win for Ohio State, and everyone contributed when they needed to. And the result of that is one of the best wins of the season to this point.
You know, and I loved the way TreVeyon Henderson, tried to make up for, having just the most unthinkable TreVeyon mistake, right? He never loses his cool like that. Mm-hmm. It makes you wonder if there was something that they just didn't show on TV, something that was said or done or whatever that really got in his head, because he just doesn't snap like that, but he found a way to make up for it quickly.
Yeah, I mean, that was a shocker, right? I had looked away from the TV, and I was like, 15-yard penalty on TreVeyon. Like, there's no way anything happened. You see it. Yeah, you hardly see that from such a high character guy that TreVeyon is. And the best part is he gets another chance and he responds, right? Not a quarter and a half later, goes 75 yards to the house. And it's like, oh yeah, your wrongs have been righted. You have made up certainly for that massive mistake in a massive way.
9 penalties, 75 yards on Ohio State. I mean, I feel like other than Jack Sawyer with the pivotal moment of his career, an all-time Ohio State moment, certainly what feels like the defining moment of the season. Other than that, I feel like the thing I'm walking out of this game remembering is how many times Ohio State put itself in bad spots where they were faced eventually with 3rd and 7 or longer, because it was 1st and 20 or 1st and 15 or 2nd and 15 or whatever. I mean, there were moments in the game where it's just like, man, I kind of feel like this should be like 28-7.
Yeah.
And never could get it to that point.
I would say we have a visitor here in the comment section. We have a visitor here. My boy Kev, here you go. Let me
send him the link. I told him to join us. Kevin, if you're
no.
All right.
No.
Kevin's having a good time, and he should.
Yeah. But no, you were saying that how Ohio State found themselves behind the sticks a lot. I would say one of the things that stood out to me, once this game settled into itself, right? Once it started going back and forth a bit, you really saw for the first time the Ohio State offensive line. You saw that they were the kind of the weak link of this team. And juxtapose that to Texas, their strength of their defense. Well, they have a couple strengths, but one of their main strengths is their interior defensive line. And you saw them starting to wreak havoc a little bit. There was a bunch of tackles for losses. And the big one that stands out, there's a handful of holding penalties that would set drives back. And tonight, for a stretch in the middle of the game, I thought Will wasn't seeing it perfect, right? We've seen him be in such good rhythm.
Wasn't seeing it perfect. There were times he wasn't seeing it at all.
Yeah, he wasn't seeing it at all. And we've seen him. We're so used to seeing him the past couple games be so locked in and so precise and reacting quickly and throwing the ball, delivering it with accuracy. And he just lost a little bit of that confidence. And you could see that up front, that they were getting pushed back, a couple of those holding penalties, and they couldn't make up for some of that lost yardage. And yeah, it was a stretch there in the middle of that game where you were really nervous about how this was going to shake out, because Texas defensive line was starting to control that line of scrimmage, and Ohio State wasn't doing a good job responding to it.
I think, my natural reaction is to consider some of the things we said pregame that we were watching for as the game went along. And, I said, listen, if you take all the hyperbole out of this, if you take all the hype and all just the good vibes going into the game, you want confidence, but confidence doesn't win games. Look at the actual individual matchup. And I said against Georgia, the Texas Longhorn offensive line wasn't quite good enough in both Georgia matchups. And they as a team, like Texas competed hard. They played okay. They had chances. But the offensive line, for as big as they were, they gave up 11 sacks in those 2 games. Tonight, they gave up 4 sacks, 9 total tackles for loss for Ohio State defensively. I thought they came in largely in critical moments. And there were a bunch of other times where they were that close. My point is they sped Quinn up quite a bit. And I thought Quinn Ewers actually played okay. Made a couple of really, really nice plays. The the one where, he flicks it over to the running back where his knee was that far off the ground.
Yeah.
Like that's instinct, right? You either have it or you don't. He played, I thought, at a pretty high level tonight. I don't think Quinn's the reason that they lost. I just felt like the offensive line for Texas, you recruit a bunch of big guys and they can largely move okay, but Ohio State's defensive line is really special right now. And even when JT Tuimoloau missed what felt like half the game with an injury, Mitch Melton played great football. Caden Curry got on the field, played great football. I love the way the defensive line was able to cause a lot of havoc and let Lathan Ransom and let Caleb Downs and Cody Simon and Sonny Styles go play the way they did.
Yeah. And I would even add another name, Kenyatta Jackson, right? Didn't show up in the stat sheet, but not going to show up in the stat sheet, but he did have a knockdown, a pass deflection.
Is this a good idea?
I don't know. It's your call.
I don't know. I'm going to need a thumbs up off camera if this is a good idea or not. You know what? I'm in a good mood. We're gonna see the Buckeyes play in a national championship. Let's bring in the former Buckeye, blowing up the chat. This is playing with fire, Mr. Wojtke.
No, we're good. We're good. We're excited. Good. We're good. That's all it is. We're live from Tremont, beautiful neighborhood in Cleveland, Ohio. Having a great time.
What's your biggest takeaway from the game? When you think back on this game, what will you remember most?
Absolutely. Biggest takeaway for me, I mean, Travion bouncing back is one because and there's a car alarm. Gotta love that. He started the game with that punch to the face. I mean, he played well and then punched guy in the face, and then he had that run at the end of the half, and then just the grit of Jack Sawyer. You felt like it was going to show up at some point in this playoff, and it did. And it was in the biggest moment at the biggest time. I was waiting for a little yellow ticker at the bottom that somehow said flag because it felt like that was happening all game, but we were good. We were dialed. And I that was my biggest takeaway, was how Jack Sawyer and that defensive line just kept chugging away. They were knocking down passes. They were making plays in the backfield in the run game. Caleb Downs was amazing in the run game, but Jack Sawyer is my number one guy.
That's a really good point of knocking down passes, because even when they couldn't get to Quinn tonight, I just felt like there were so many ways that defensive line disrupted the game tonight. And obviously a few deflections certainly was part of that.
Oh, 100%. They were getting pressure, but they weren't pressuring too much, which was good, but also I would have probably wanted a few more deeper pressures. But when they weren't getting the push they needed, they were throwing their hands up and making it hard for Quinn Ewers, who's an undersized quarterback, to make those plays in the pass game.
And I would add one thing too, Kev. I mean, how many times have you and I got on a film review show and talked about a game where, hey, they've given up yards from the 20 to 20, and then they get into the red zone, and then they have a first and goal, and this Ohio State team bows up and shuts a team down, and it doesn't make sense. You think back to the Penn State game. There was one there. There's been a handful throughout the season, and tonight, you had 2 first and goals, right? You had the first one, you get a pass interference. So you get first and goal from the 2-yard line with 4 minutes to go with the season on the line. It's 21-14. And you're talking about, hey, maybe Sark goes for 2 if they score, and tries to take the lead. And instead you stuff them on first down. Texas inexplicably runs a pitch play to the left. Caleb Downs, superstar, goes and makes a tackle for loss, or at least slows the momentum down.
Yeah, he slowed it down.
Slowed it down, and then incomplete, and then fumble. Strips. I mean, it's the same thing we saw all year long, and it frustrated the heck out of you and I, Kev, but it showed up in the biggest game, and they were able to get it done.
It seems like their touchdowns they scored were outside of that 20-yard line, that 15-yard line that Ohio State felt confident inside of all year. And that's what's going to happen. When you bring pressure on a good quarterback like Quinn Ewers, he's going to find that safety valve. He's going to see it and dump it over the top. And that was the only way they scored 2 touchdowns. I mean, I would have loved to see Will Howard rush that touchdown in. I'm not going to lie to you. It looked like Daniel Jones a couple years ago, just running straight downhill and got his shoulders over his knees and fell forward.
I got so flat-footed. I was like, no, it
was tough. But, hey, we got it in. I also love that a couple of our touchdowns were running touchdowns. Sure. Jeremiah Smith wasn't there today. They took him out of the game, which is fine, but it showed Carnell Tate, he dropped that touchdown pass, but then immediately caught a third down touchdown over the middle, or third down, first down over the middle. Like, that was fantastic. It was great to see. They bounced back, and then, yeah, like you said, Anthony. I mean, that's just what it was. They've all year they've been bend don't break, and they bent again and didn't break at the end of that game.
Kevin, this is such a loaded question. I shouldn't even ask you this, but I'm gonna. I'm thinking about the offensive scheme tonight, and the idea of Texas taking JJ out of the game the way they did, basically just bracketing him and saying, we're going to make somebody else beat you. Emeka got some touches. I mean, he had 5 catches for 51 yards. A couple of those were on the opening drive, if I remember correctly. It was basically Carnell Tate and a lot of G. Scott. I didn't personally love how much G. Scott was targeted in this game. I know you're a G. Scott apologist.
No.
Number one fan. Fan.
And supporter, not apologist, supporter. G. Scott was the life and blood of this offense. When they needed a check down, when they needed that pass, that 3rd and 2. I mean, he fought his butt off for that first down, and then Will Howard takes it on the quarterback power and rips it right through the heart of Texas. That went through Dallas, that went through Austin, that went through Houston, that went through the entire state of Texas, and just ripped their hearts all the way out.
Take it, Brennan. I can't ruin my guy's flow here.
I mean, listen, he never dropped a pass tonight. He was an important part of the offense. I'll give you that. I just didn't like how many times he was targeted. I thought that, and Anthony, you as the former quarterback, you see the game differently than I do. So tell me this. Mm-hmm. I think about the way the offense attacked Tennessee early, attacked Oregon early. Other than Texas having 2 high safeties and just playing a shell and trying to keep it all in front of you, is there anything else that Texas did that made you as a quarterback go, I can't take the shots that I was taking, the last couple games?
I would say, truthfully, them being able to push the pocket. I think that is an underrated thing where, for the last 2 games especially, Will's had 0 pressure on him. And we've talked about it. It's been for a number of reasons, right? They've been playing from ahead. They've been really good schematically, getting him out of the pocket, getting him moving. But when he was just straight dropping back tonight, there was a lot of pressure around him. Sometimes he had clean pockets and he was able to sit back there and throw it. Other times there was pressure in his face, and that certainly makes it tough to stand in there and throw it down the field. I would also add when the other team, the opposing defense, is dropping back and playing these deep coverages, the one thing that you can do that will lose you the football game is to force one and turn it over, right? If the game plan calls for throwing it deep, but the defense calls for you to check it down and just take your medicine, that's what you have to do. And I thought, while it was frustrating at times, I thought Will did that and avoided the major mistake that just kept Ohio State in the game. And like I said, not what we're used to, but kind of what the game ended up calling for throughout that middle portion of it.
I thought that the vibe of the fourth quarter was interesting because, it's a tie game and you're kind of feeling like you're probably, if you're an Ohio State fan, you're like, still in a good spot, have the ball, moving a little bit, applying some pressure. It's not explosive. It's not untouchable, but like there's some sustained success there. You finally punch it in and you go up, with basically 7 minutes to go. And 4 plays later, Texas is on your 15-yard line. It had this feel like, wait, what? Like, how did that happen? In my head, it's still hard to comprehend how Texas not only didn't score, but that Ohio State's goal line defense did what it's done several times this year, and that it ends with Jack's scoop and score like that. I mean, those are like championship defining moments. And I'm not trying to take anything away from a potential game against Notre Dame, because I'll tell you what, I think Notre Dame actually might be better at the line of scrimmage than Texas. Like, that's going to be a tough part of this upcoming game. But the way Ohio State brings that championship moment together and leans on its defense to do it when it's it's a group that has been so pushed around, during 4 or 5 years, and all decided we're going to stick around and try to give this thing one more go. It just feels right for them to have been the reason that this game went the way it did.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what it is. It reminds me eerily similar to Clemson 2016 when all those guys came back and decided, hey, we're going to go out and win this game. And it was their defensive line that drove them to come back and bring those guys back. And it just looks very similar. I mean, it was a quintessential. I mean, week 1 or week 2, whenever we play Texas next year, is going to be amazing. I got to call my friend Morgan to get her dad to come to go down to the game with me, because that's going to be one I want to go to. But it'll be. I'm excited. I mean, yeah, it's getting a little chilly out here, so I might have to sign off.
I was just going to say, Kevin, you look like you need some kind of beverage that'll warm you up.
Yeah, no, it's
coffee or hot chocolate.
Absolutely no free ads, but shout out Treehouse and Tremont. Great time tonight. Great atmosphere. No, I'm excited. Anthony, I'll see you in the morning for film review. For all those watching who want to watch film review, highly recommended. Great time with me and Anthony down, we right down the pipe. That's what we do. We're 2 offensive guys, but we know defense. It'll be a great time. Thanks so much for letting me tap in.
But before you sign off, Kevin,
Yep.
Are you reviewing the film before you do it live, or is this going to just be like,
I'm
Kevin going like, yeah, it looked like a pretty good block there by G.
I think we're going to rip some coffee in the morning, and then we're just going to go right into it. And I'm going to let Anthony surprise me with all the plays. I'll review it live. You'll get a live analysis. It'll be perfect.
That sounds like can't miss content if I've ever heard it.
Absolutely.
Kevin Woike, thanks for checking in.
Thank you.
Love it. How freaking good is that?
So good.
I saw him blowing up the chat, and I thought, this has to happen. What have we not talked about that you want to get to that struck you here?
I would say the big one. We touched on it barely, but I think Carnell Tate is worth a little bit here, because one, you called it in our pregame. You said this might be a Carnell Tate game, and it certainly was. 7 catches, 87 yards. Should have had a touchdown, but he did drop it. But the response to that was, as Kevin mentioned, after that drop, I think it was on the first drive. A bunch of big catches throughout the rest of the game. And for him, his story is great. And if you don't know it, I encourage you to go look it up. But he's a guy that everybody on this Ohio State team loves, like truthfully loves. And to see him have this success, and all year long it's been, he's third fiddle. It's Jeremiah this, Jeremiah, Mecca, and then Carnell will get in there if he can. But tonight he was the star on offense, and it's just, you couldn't be happier for the kid showing up on the biggest stage.
And the reason why I said that pregame, I mean, I wasn't trying to be some like prognosticator, but it just felt like anybody who's watched 10 seconds of Ohio State football going into a game like this, you think like, all right, make somebody other than 4 beat you, because that guy is literally, he's an alien, and he catches everything, and his, high play ability is off the charts. And Emeka Egbuka is, not praised enough for how good he is. Somebody other than Jeremiah Smith was going to get a bunch of targets. And it just sort of felt to me like, if you're going to go into spread sets all the time, and you're going to have 3 receivers on the field, if you're going to double Jeremiah, somebody's going to be open. And I'm not surprised that Carnell and G. Scott in particular got a lot of touches tonight. I think it's a compliment to the fact that those guys are both good players, but also the fact that, Texas essentially said, look, somebody other than Jeremiah Smith is going to have to make some plays tonight. I personally would have liked to see the ball in Trevion's hands a little bit more. I don't just mean running the ball. Like, he's electrifying, right? I mean, they threw him just the 1 screen pass, and he had 6 rushes on the night. Like, I just felt like as that offense was going along, they ran 57 plays, and he touched the ball 7 times. It just felt to me like he should have had more.
It always feels that way for whatever reason, and they do a good job, right? There's certainly a balance you have to strike between him and Quinshon, and I thought Quinshon was very solid tonight. He had 2 touchdowns, but from a yardage perspective, he had 9 carries for 36 yards. So he was kind of getting bottled up, and Trevion is honestly so electric when he touches the ball. He's got that rare talent of speed, strength, and just this elusiveness, and he's got incredible balance. Not a lot of people agree with me, but he reminds me of a lot of like watching Nick Chubb run, where he's always leaning forward, he's always falling forward, but he's like powerful in his cuts, and he's always accelerating. And I just think every time he touches the football, there's a chance for it to go, or at least be super positive. 5-yard gain, 6-yard gain, 8-yard gain. So I would love to see him get the ball more, but who am I to say anything? They got a really great balance right now between those two.
Sure. No, I actually kind of see where your head's at there. I mean, Trevion's obviously not as big as Chubb is, but the physicality with which he runs, I'll give you that. It's just, you think of Henderson as he's the home run threat. He's the explosive guy who can make 2 cuts and then it's see you later, right? And Judkins is pretty fast too, but he's probably a little more of a physical runner if you're thinking about small differences between the two. I guess I just got so sick and tired of hearing, like last night in particular and most of the season, at Penn State's got the best backfield in the country. Allen and Singleton, man, these guys are good. And, there were some arguing that Notre Dame was a better backfield than Penn State. And I get that, but like, I don't know that these two guys are getting the appreciation that they're due. And I feel like, in fact, Quinshon's, presence at Ohio State this year, the fact that he has been as good and trustworthy as he's been has given Trevion a fighting chance to be healthy late in the year so that he can look like this. Because too often I think Trevion has had moments in his career where he gets late in the season and something's happened, his ankle's not quite right, or this or that or whatever. You're seeing a full, healthy Trevion Henderson, and now Ohio State's going into a national championship game. And I'm sure there's some guys that are a little banged up here after tonight, but like, grand scheme of things, you're through tonight. This team's pretty healthy.
Oh, you're 13-2, Brennan. So you've played 15 games. You've had 2 bye weeks. That's 17 weeks. And then not only that, you had 3 weeks off between.
You really had 3 byes because you didn't play in a conference championship.
Well, but yeah, you didn't play in the conference championship, and there was 3 weeks there. There was a week off in between New Year. We had 10 days since your last game. So this is so long. Like, this season is so long. And the fact that Trevion looks the way he does right now is awesome. And that's why you balance it throughout the year. That's why you can hear me arguing, like, give Trey more carries, but it's all for a really good reason. And the result of it is how fresh he looks tonight. It won't get lost in the shuffle, but it'll be second fiddle to the Jack Sawyer play.
Yep.
75-yard screen pass with 20 seconds to go in the first half. Totally changed the game. It was all Texas. Texas had the momentum. Bang. We got it right back.
Yeah, completely changed it. 2 things for me before we wrap. I was a little frustrated at times with Chip Kelly's play calling throughout the night. It was fine, but I didn't love it. I loved the decision to run quarterback power on 4th down with Will Howard. I thought that was the perfect time to draw up that play. I loved it.
So we'll break it down schematically tomorrow. Texas was so outmatched because Ohio State went tackle, or they didn't go tackle over. They were overloaded on the right side. They had a guy ineligible. 3 guys left. It was awesome. It was awesome. And I agree with you. I love it. We hadn't seen a straight quarterback run all game.
Not once.
And Brennan, let's go back a couple weeks. We haven't seen like a called necessary, got to have it. We're putting it in 18's hands because we haven't had the scenario, and it didn't happen until the 4th quarter tonight. It was awesome.
It was the perfect time for that call. That was great. And I've not been super complimentary of Justin Fry this year because I just feel like there have been enough points where the offensive line had been problematic. Obviously, I felt like the last couple of weeks certainly that had turned into more of a positive for this team. But I mean, we're talking about wins over Tennessee, Oregon, and Texas, and by the end of each game, in their own right, convincing wins. Like, Texas competed hard. This is obviously the closest game on the scoreboard. It was also the closest game if you just watched it. Texas gave Ohio State a good fight. And frankly, it was a little bit better of a game than I expected. I said pregame, I thought that Ohio State was going to score ultimately 10 more points than they did, but I didn't think Texas was going to find a way to get to 20. So the final score was a little tighter than I thought. But Ohio State's offensive line is moving some bodies right now. And, Notre Dame's got a good defensive line.
Yeah.
And to me, like that Notre Dame defense is playing really well. They force a ton of turnovers. And I think it starts with the fact that their defensive line has dominated a lot of the games they've played this year. So that group has got to make sure they're healthy and locked in and ready, because I think Ohio State is going to be, I mean, I think I saw they're like a 12-point favorite already, in Vegas. I don't know if I haven't really thought enough or obviously watched tape in that regard. But if Ohio State's offensive line doesn't give Will the time that he needs against Notre Dame, that defense is really aggressive.
Yeah.
So let's give Justin Fry some credit, because he took a group that at the beginning of the year had a few question marks. I mean, again, I don't want to keep rambling. Think about where we were 1 year ago, playing in this stadium, in this game.
Yeah.
And you wanted to stick your fingers down your throat because it was the worst offensive performance you can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And so much of that started on the offensive line. And today I thought the offensive line kicked some serious butt. They looked
Yeah,
really
well, it's an amazing 365-day loop there, man. I didn't even think of it, right? You were down there for that game, and it felt like, it was horrible, right? It was just a horrible night. And that now the opposite is tonight. But speaking directly about that offensive line group, there's certainly ways to get better. They weren't perfect, but 2 sacks on the night, 4 tackles for loss. Like, that is good. Like, in my mind, that's winning football. It's not
2
perfect.
sacks in 57 plays.
Yeah, take it. You'll sign me right up. If you told me that pregame,
9 penalties is not good enough, but 2 sacks and 57 plays is good enough.
We'll take that. You'll absolutely take that. And it just continues to be impressive. Luke Montgomery, yeah, he had some wins tonight. He had some losses tonight, but kid's battling, right? He's battling his tail off. Everyone inside's battling. Your 2 tackles, Josh Fryer, Donovan Jackson. You can't speak highly enough about Donovan Jackson, about what he's been able to do this year. And again, he was great tonight. So, it's a tip of the cap to those guys. One more guy I wanted to call out, because we've been a little critical of him, is Sonny Styles. He's been second fiddle to Cody Simon all year long, but tonight he was awesome. He was everywhere that you needed him to be. Statistically, 9 total tackles, 1 sack, 3 tackles for loss, 1 pass breakup, and it was that big one. His pass defense was huge. It was a second down over the middle, and he thumped the tight end, hit him really, really hard, and he just played really well. You can see. The thing that always stands out when Ohio State's defense is playing well is how fast they play. Think about their top guys: Caleb Downs, Cody Simon, Sonny Styles, Lathan Ransom. All get to the ball like they're a bat out of hell, and they do it with bad intentions. And Cody was on it tonight.
Yeah,
or
really,
Sonny was.
So Sonny played great, and I thought Cody Simon had another really good game too.
Yeah.
Love that in this game, Ohio State's defense not just closes the game the way they did, but closed it with the last 2 possessions for Texas and turning them over with a fumble and with the INT. Just an awesome night for Ohio State football. And, a team that lost 2 games in the regular season gets in the 12-team playoff. I don't think there's anybody in the country that thought Ohio State was not one of the 12 best teams after playing 12 games. But a year ago, Ohio State would not have made the college football playoff. And all they've done in this first iteration of the expanded playoff is steamroll Tennessee. They killed Oregon, and they outlasted a really tough Texas team that gave them a good game. The Buckeyes made a few more plays by the end of the night and won it 28-14. And so Ohio State is playing in the national championship in about a week and a half down at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. The Buckeyes and the Fighting Irish. Pretty awesome. It's going to be a heck of a game. By the way, I also love that the 2 teams playing in the national title game are teams that had home playoff games on campus and did not receive first-round byes. I think it's awesome. So Bucks and Irish, it's going to be a lot of fun. Can't wait to get down there. We got lots to talk about between now and then. Hope to see you tomorrow morning for a film review. That was a riveting tease.
That's our marketing guy. Kevin Weike, live. Live in your living room.
Love it. Hope to see you guys tomorrow morning. Ohio State 28, Texas 14. What a night for the Buckeyes. See you soon. Buckeye Breakdown Podcast.